Hi everyone, I'm Sader, and I wanted to talk to you about the recent rumors about our Raiders. I don't want to go too long about this. The people who is following the news about this game probably already heard about the gear-based matchmaking, so probably a lot of you know what this could imply. The developers have already come out and said that although they tested for this, they're not going that route. They're more interested in doing what would be separating group players, the ones playing trios and the ones playing solos. So solo players can only encounter solos, and group players can only encounter another group. I said that I wanted to keep it fast because, well, one, English is not my native language, so I'm not used to talking this much. I can maintain a conversation, but like I said, it's not my main language. I still have a lot to learn. Second, I'm not used to making videos. I made a couple of shorts, a video. I've been streaming, but I'm gaming a lot, so I might as well streaming kind of stream. I don't usually interact with game communities in general, but I wanted to make this video because I believe that this game, Arc Raiders, could be the game I've been waiting for, or similar to the game I've been waiting for. And I'm actually worried about uh, the path it could take. Not because the company doesn't have the best interest in mind, but because of the type of players that like this type of genre. So I'm gonna try to explain why am I worried about this and what my idea of a solution for this will be instead of tuning the game or separating the player base. I believe an incentive to be good basically needs to be created. And the way to do that is through a bounty system. I also want to clarify that I actually don't have a lot of experience playing extraction shooters. The closest thing that I experienced to this is, I believe, Rust, which is more of a survival game, but the core game mechanic is very similar to a extraction shooter. And my guess is the developers Embark also believe that because it was one of the games that show in one of the surveys they send. Well, the only survey they send out to people, I believe, or the one I got. So I'm gonna use that game as an example of why a bounty system could be important in a game like Art Raiders. Now, my main concern is that although they said that they're not going this route, I'm afraid that they might try it anyway in the future because of the type of players that are attracted to this genre of this type of games. It seems like in games where there's a lot of high stakes and tense situations, there's players who go to these types of game and that the main source of enjoyment is not going against the NPCs or exploring the world, it's going against other players. If you play Rust, for example, you know what I mean. And what I've seen about this game, it seems to be like the developers are trying to foster cooperation, to encourage players working together. But believe me, or at least that's my fear, that there's gonna be players who go completely against it, not because the studio is failing or is not encouraging cooperation, but because that's what they like. There's gonna be players who their main source of enjoyment is killing other players just because of it, because that's what they like. Going against art, going against big bosses, anything, it's just a means to an end, a means to go against other players. And like one of the guys I'm gonna link the video about said about Tarkov, that game getting figured out. I believe that this game is also gonna get figured out. Most games get figured out eventually, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's the particularities of those games, of each game, that keeps them interesting. And I believe that sooner rather than later, a lot of players are gonna devolve into this PvP situation. Uh, they're gonna. I already saw it on the server slam. At least this was my perception. I enjoyed a lot, and I also found a lot of nice people to play with. But I also encounter situations that make me feel a lot like the situations I've been in games like Rust, for example, where there's people who basically are trying to kill you or get you killed or betray you or scam you just to get your loot. Now, I may be overreacting or maybe paranoid, and that's not what happened. There was at least one or two matches where I felt that my team was not very interested in being a team and helping each other. There was a situation, for example, where I died and they were more interested in picking my loot than helping me. There was another situation where I separated from the group. They were right on that, and I got picked by another group. But my team was hidden, and they have a direct uh, line of sight with them. They could have shoot at them or something. They ended up executing me, and I will think, well, they didn't want to risk it, they didn't want to fight, so they let me die. But right after they kill me, they start fighting the team. So to me, that feels, again, I may just be overreacting or being paranoid, but they had no interest in being a team. They just, I was more valuable to them as loot than as another teammate. And I think that's gonna happen a lot in this type of game. And although it can be stressful, it can be infuriating sometimes, I believe it's part of this type of game, and it should not be, banned or something like that. But it should be contained. There should be boundaries to this, and that's why in this video I'm gonna try to go fast about it. But I'm thinking that instead of separating groups of people into solos and trios, they should maybe implement a bounty system across the game. My point is, this type of genre, this type of game, this traction shooter, it's gonna attract a lot of people who enjoy, who have fun killing another players, and that's what they're looking from this type of game. The whole cooperation, PvE aspect of the game is interesting, definitely something I am excited about. But for some people, I believe it's gonna be just a means to an end. It's gonna be a means to obtain loot, to kill other players. And I don't know if that's what Embark is trying to do. I believe they're trying to orient it more to a cooperation style of game. But there's definitely gonna be people who do that. And I don't think they should ban it or something like that. It's part of the genre. What they need to do is generate a positive energy. Because, like I said, there's people who will want to kill other players, and there's gonna be people who also want to fight other players, but want to be a little bit more fair about it. They will want to maybe just fight people who kill other people, who are being aggressive to other people or something like that. Different type of players will eventually want to go into PvP mode, and to discourage players just going around killing people for the fun of it without going into hard rules like bans or modifying the maps or the game mechanics greatly. I think they should go this route. Fostering, encouraging cooperation against other uh, enemies, in this case the arch enemies, is not going to be enough. I already experienced situations where all my time playing the server slime, I play solo, but I got paired with random people, and I already experienced a couple of situations where we killed maybe one of their team, and the other two or one that were remaining were already waiting for us on the closest extraction point, the the one that we logically will pick. And again, it sounds like I'm complaining, and I am, but it's part of the game. And what all this complaining, what I'm trying to communicate, is that it's gonna happen. And Embark may try to find ways to tune it, but it's gonna keep happening. The game is always gonna get figured out. So how do I imagine this system being implemented? Let's say that you go into a match, you loot, you're ready to extract. Somewhere along the way, you get killed. They don't even talk to you. They were interested only in killing you. You feel some way about it, so after you go back to the lobby, you go to this trader, and their name should be appearing there. The game should be able to track who downs you and who kills you. And if somebody downs you and another player kills you, you should be able to place a bounty on both of them. The way I imagine it is that you go to this trader, their name is appearing there, and you have several options. You click on a player, and you are able to place 3 levels of bounty, like basic, medium, and like a big bounty, you know. And this is, in my mind, mostly psychological, like a bottleneck. Like, you get a moment to think, like, how mad am I, and if it's worth like spending these resources on, you know, looking for revenge. So after you say, you know what, I'm mad, I want to place a bounty, there's gonna be like a fee for accessing those services, and this should be like something very simple, like something you could get from Scrappy if you don't pick its resources for a couple of matches. And on top of that, fee, there's the actual, price they ask for you, and this could be either a green or a blue item. I believe that it should be capped at blue rarity tops, whether it's a gun or an item or a grenade or something. I believe that maybe if you go higher than that, it will start to become some sort of mercenary service, and people will be looking just for the highest point. And I say point because at first I thought that this could be just, those items get transferred to the bounty hunter, but that will create a lot of storage issues, I believe. So the best thing to go, I think, is to go with a point system. Let's say the basic bounty is 1 point, the medium is 2, and the big bounty is 3. You place the bounty, and that gets tracked to that said player, whether they're in a match or in a lobby, it doesn't matter. And they cannot remove it by just dying. Otherwise, they're gonna go into a match with not loot and get themselves killed. It should only be removed by other player killing them. They don't have to go to the trader to activate the bounty or something like that. Just by killing them, if they had a bounty on them, you get the points. Not only you can place different levels of bounties like basic and medium and big bounty, you should be able to place tags with the bounty. For example, a 3-level bounty on this player, wanted for murder, or wanted for robbery, or wanted for scamming. And this does nothing like it's not a debuff of anything, but when a bounty hunter is tracking a bounty on the map, it will help them to know what type of player there is. If they're murderers, if they just rob other players of their things, by scamming them or something like that during a trade. So, and also it helps with immersion. Of course, for this you need to create a way to see that bounty on top of the player. What I was imagining is like a scope or something like the binoculars that are already on the game. Maybe adding a feature that you can scan the screen when you're using them, and if you detect a player, it can tell you if that player has a bounty on them. And one thing of these bounties is that they are gonna stack. So if this player who's been killing a lot of players let's say that on his last match he killed 5 players and all of them decided to place a level 3 bounty. Now he has a like 15-point bounty on its head, and that makes it more enticing for somebody else to go and get that player, and also tells you a little bit about them, like how dangerous they are. The higher the points, that means that the more players that they have killed probably. And that's the basic game mechanic of the bounty system. Somebody kills you, you go to the trader, you place a bounty, and you keep playing. And that helps you, in your fantasy, maybe imagine that somebody else is taking care of that player. I will also suggest that you get a notification if the bounty that you place has been claimed. And again, that will do like nothing for you except like some sort of psychological effect, knowing that the person who killed you has been dealt with. I've been mentioning a lot of trader. Of course, right now there's no such thing as a bounty trader, but I think if they ever go with this idea, with this feature, it should not be only something that you can access through the map or something like that. A whole identity, something like a faction should be created about this idea of helping other people and hunting those who just, go killing their fellow raiders. And of course, people are already gonna do that, that's for sure. But this will help you, encourage it. And the trader will not only help to organize the whole bounties and claiming your rewards, but like I said, also create some sort of identity, like to recognize it. An image to link to the idea of defending other players. But of course, there's need to be boundaries, otherwise this system is also gonna get abused either by people who just want to, PvP with other players, and people who want to mess with other players. So, and of course, I don't know anything about game design or game development. If anybody is interested in this, which I hope they are, maybe they can come up with other limitations. But what I imagine is something like, let's say that any player has a limit on the amount of bounties they can place daily. They reset also daily, but they do not stack. Let's say that you have 6 bounties that you can place daily, and if you only use 2, you lose the other 4 unless you use them on that day, and the next day you have another 6. Again, this to avoid people abusing the system. And on the other hand, the amount of bounties a player can claim, I don't know if there should be a limit, but at least it should be like a high limit. It should be higher than the amount of bounties that can be placed. This to encourage people to keep playing bounty hunter if they encounter murderous raiders, and not just like drop the act the moment they don't benefit from it, which I believe a lot of players will do. So it needs to be like, if not a big cap, no cap at all when it comes to reclaiming bounties. However, the points that you receive from it, I believe that there's a cap to the amount. There should be a cap to the amount that you can use daily. This trader should also have a progression system available to anybody up to a certain point. I have no idea how many levels or something like that should have, but they should have certain milestones. For example, let's say level 5 has a milestone that you gain an emote, a trading emote, to talk to other players and maybe convince them to trade. But not that will have a secondary function, and it will act as a verbal contract. And if you, for example, you encounter a player, you want to exchange guns, but you want some sort of assurance, you can pull off the emote They maybe can interact similar to how you can interact with emotes in Fortnite or other games in Helldivers, for example. And if they do like maybe shake hands or something like that, they're agreeing to not betray each other. And if they do, they can get a bounty on their head. And now you can not only place a bounty for murder, but also for like robbery or scamming or something like that. If you progress a little bit more, there's another milestone maybe where you get a special flare to call upon bounty hunters in case you're in trouble and you need help, and maybe there's someone around who's willing to go out of his way to help someone. There are already flares in this game to serve this function, but maybe they could like implement some sort of personalized flares to this trader, to this bounty hunter that gives you the bounties. Again, to give you some sort of identity related to this cause of helping players. I believe after a certain point, only people who are actively taking on bounties should be able to progress and maybe even get another emote personalized to this, like a work together emote that functions some sort of like a leader emote, similar to the one I already mentioned, but this for bigger groups, for the situations where you need to fight together a queen or something like that. And again, it's a verbal contract that if anybody that agreed to it on the emote break the verbal contract, they are entitled to a bounty, maybe even a bigger bounty that the ones they will be entitled to if they kill you. But this can only be placed by somebody on the group being a high level like bounty hunter, not like high level player, but a high level bounty hunter. I also believe that there should not be a counterpart to this. They should not create like a mercenary or like a bad smuggler or something that offers the same service for good players, like bounties on good players, because players already have a lot of incentives for killing other players, whether it be like loot or just not risking getting killed or just for fun. So you don't need to encourage that anymore. You need to keep encouraging cooperation and accountability, but not just through basic banning features or something like that, or tuning the map. Now, let's say that you're a player who enjoys going around killing players, and you want to access some of the features the trader offers. You can do that, but the trader is gonna react to it. Maybe he's gonna be rude to you or something like that. And maybe he's gonna charge you more for the items that he's gonna sell with the tokens that you win from the service. Should be available to you nonetheless. However, like I said, the trader should react to it, and there should be a cap to the amount of things that you can receive or interact with the trader. This will work similar to a reputation system, and maybe you could implement the option that if you stop killing a lot of players and instead start to take bounties on other players, you can like get on good terms with the trader, and he starts to react to that and to your change, like going from killing players and to helping players, again to keep immersion in the game. I don't know what I'm talking about. I have no experience in this whatsoever. My only experience is playing a lot of games. But I believe that this trader should be also integrated into the lore of the game. And for example, and I don't know the story of Ark. Maybe what I'm thinking goes against it. Maybe it doesn't match what they have in mind. Maybe, and they don't even show in a lot of like backstory of any of these traders. I don't know if they are gonna do that, but maybe like for their backstory of this character, it could be an old raider, a retired raider who used to go to the surface and act very much like the people who we are going to hunt, like killing other players and not thinking twice about it. But he got old and he has a lot of loot, so. And now he feels guilty about it. He feels like he needs to change and somehow do something about the things he has done. And what he does now is he helps players, uh, helpless players, to get revenge or justice when someone wrongs them. And he uses his accumulated wealth in loot and scrap and all of that to entice other people to do good. There's a lot more things that I could say about this topic. I've been thinking a lot about my experiences playing Rust. I wanted to give some examples about it and about the quote-unquote psychology of the players that I encounter there and that I think that I will encounter in Arc Raiders. But I think it will be another 15-20 minutes. So basically what I'm trying to say is that this game, and I'm also gonna link a couple of videos that I saw about this. I didn't know these streamers. Since I've been following Arc Raiders, a bunch of videos have been popping up in my feed. And the one that was talking about Tarkov and the game being figured out along with other things made sense to me and made me think about this game and about how it's gonna get figured out. So more smart or complex ways to balance the game need to be implemented. What I believe these people were trying to say, and that I also agree with, is that this type of game, this genre of extraction shooters, is not supposed to be fair. It's not supposed to be safe or predictable. It's supposed to generate a lot of different scenarios that can be good or bad, and that's what makes them memorable. Again, taking examples from Rust, I had situations, not many because I'm not that good of a player, but I had situations where you, as a recent spawn, having nothing on you but a basic bow, can take of a higher higher gear player. If you're skilled enough, maybe even 2 or 3 players in a couple of seconds, and just like that, get a bunch of good loot. And the fact that they divided the game, or they're planning to divide the game, playing solos with solos and trios with trios, just by doing that, they are taking away situations that you can encounter yourself to. Most of them bad, and that's what they are trying to avoid, but also good situations. Like, if they do that, there won't be a scenario where you feel good about as a solo taking on a 3 group. That can only happen if 3 solos agree to work together on a solo queue, and that can happen, but it's gonna be less often. When I was playing the Server Slam, when I noticed that we seem to be divided by trios, I only play groups. I had less mercy or less tolerance when finding other groups. If I found just one player, I wouldn't risk it, because I knew, or it seemed to me, that there were no solo players on this queue. So I immediately went into hunter mode, because I knew that his team was not far behind. But if you're on a queue where solos and groups are all together, you will behave differently. The fact that you know that you cannot encounter another solo as a trio or as a solo encounter a group does change your behavior. Just by knowing that you cannot encounter solos in a trio queue or vice versa takes away some situations, some scenarios that can happen, and by extension some emotions, I will say. That makes it more safe, but I will argue a little bit more boring too. And I don't know if I like that. So on top of the bounty system and all of that, I will also make the argument that they should, if not fully integrate solos with trios, at least maybe have the best of both worlds. And if we're gonna have, for example, 4 maps, and I heard that maybe we get a 5th or more, but let's say that we're gonna have 4, maybe we can have 2 maps where it's all versus 1, solos versus groups, and others that the queue is gonna be separated, and see how that works. And if it works, well, leave it like that. Also make it like rotate daily, maybe like a couple 2 or 3 hours, like the night rates, so players can experience both things, and also so players who are looking to prey on other players don't just pick one map and stick to it and be forced to move and change maps. But I don't know. Like I say, I don't know what I'm talking about. But whatever they do, my belief is that because of the type of players that are attracted to this type of game, instead of going with basic tuning and stuff like that, they should learn the quote-unquote psychology of type of profile of players that are in this game and work with it. In this case, by encouraging people, by incentivizing players to not only not misbehave but engage into PvP against specifically against players who kill other players, and not just like anybody, any player in general, because there's gonna be players who want to engage in PvP. I want to engage in PvP. It was pretty fun when I did it on the servers land, and something like this will give players a good reason to do it without feeling guilty or bad about it, and without looking for silly reasons to actually engage in PvP. They need to incentivize people to act good and help other players, more than just put enemies in front of them. And they need to gamify it. And that's basically it. At this point I'm just repeating myself, so I'll leave it at that. Of course I'm biased, but I think this is a good idea and I would like to see it implemented, so I will try to get this video out. Also, I want to apologize. By this point you probably noticed that there's a lot of cuts and probably not very good editing. I'm not used to this, but again, I'm really getting invested in this game and I want to get this out. But yeah, that's basically it. Thank you for listening.